Hi everyone, I'm Bill Holcomb and thanks so much for joining me as we embark on another beginner's watercolor tutorial. Whether you're a complete beginner or have a few paintings under your belt, I'm sure today's tutorial will help you learn a few things and provide you with some good practice techniques. Today we will be going through the basics of using wet in wet washes to create a simple yet beautiful watercolor landscape. The best part? You only need three colors, three brushes, and a small piece of paper to get started. So grab your paints, get comfortable, and let's get painting. With some clear water on my mop brush in what will be the sky area. Just here and there laying down clear water, but at the horizon level where the sky will be meeting the water, I put a band of clear water. And then I use my number 12 brush, go straight into my Winsor blue. As you know, all the colors are prepared in advance. Most important when doing large wet and wet washes. Although this is a small piece of paper, it's still large washes. So have them prepared in advance like I've done. I showed you all the colors on the screen, how to mix them, how intense they look. Because the last thing you want to do is having to suddenly rush and mix up another color, because what you've laid down already will start drying on you and then you get all sorts of problems. So I've laid that down and did a little bit of fusing here and there. You see me wipe the brush on some tissue here and there, just taking off some of the pigment. And so it's just a damp brush. It's not got lots of pigment at the moment because I'm fusing in the edges of the blue into those white fluffy clouds, shaping them up here and there, making them as interesting as possible. So remember, always have that tissue to hand. Make sure it's nice and clean so you don't transfer other colors on to the paper. And then I've got the darker mixture, still using number 12, the Winsor Blue and Scarlet Lake, and dropping that in here and there. And my paper, which is often the case, is 300-pound weight arches. Doesn't have to be taped down around all the sides. I've only got it taped at the bottom so the paper doesn't move whilst I'm doing the video, because that would be distracting if it's sliding all over the place. You could use the 140-pound for this exercise, but you would have to tape it down. And then it would be your choice as well as to whether, once it's taped down, you put a clear wash of water over the whole thing and dry it off with a hairdryer to make it as taut as possible. So your choice, but I would suggest the 300-pound weight will work best. Dry that off with the hairdryer and you see it's much lighter. And then I'm just fusing that area where the sky will be meeting the water. And the water on this occasion could be a lake, could be the ocean, doesn't matter. But it's going to be nice and calm, not complicated, and very easy to achieve, as you'll see. So once that's dry, I use my mop brush again. And at this time, I'm putting clear water over all of the area that will be the lake or the ocean. Then straight into the Winsor blue, coming in from each side using the number 12 brush. Little broken here and there. It's not a solid wash of blue over the whole of the area. It's gaps here and there, and also come in from the sides with some of the darker version, your Winsor blue and Scarlet Lake. Just run that along, let it fuse in, gaps here and there, making it more interesting. It's a nice flat ocean or lake. It's not a lot of busy activity going on with wave action or the wind blowing, etc. It's a very still, calm day. Chosen on purposefully so that you can learn a lot about wet and wet washes and not have to worry about complicated patterns and everything. So dry that off with a hairdryer, dried nice and light, and now we do the trees. I have the mixture of Winsor Blue and Light Red with more, of Scarlet Lake with more of the Scarlet Lake than the Winsor Blue to make it a brownie sort of colour. And I'm using number 6 brush, Utrecht brush, and if I press hard, then I get the thicker parts of the tree, trunks and so forth. If I press lightly using the tip of the brush, I can get the limbs nice and thin, etc. And think about shape. Here and there, purposefully leave gaps. You want lots of gaps in the tree for interest and for reality. And then you can either dry that off or leave it as it is. If you leave it as it is, it will fuse here and there. As you'll see with mine now, it's not totally dry, just a little bit dry. Then I've gone into the light green, still using the number 6. And here and there, I'm just scraping that on, leaving lots of gaps in the tree. And then you can dry off with a hairdryer. Then you can still use your number 6 and go to the darker green. Just lay that down here and there. In the main, I'm laying it at the bottom of the clumps of foliage areas, leaving the top parts of the foliage lighter. But we will totally deal with all that as we go along. This is an underpainting situation. So we've given it a structure, we've given it underpainting, and then the darker pigments, even darker pigments, will come on top later. And in that respect, I'll mix some Winsor Blue and the Winsor Yellow to a thick, pasty feel to it, as you can see on the palette there. And then I get that onto the brush and I scrape it on. Now I'm shaping up the tree even more. See how quickly and easily we can achieve the effects of a tree and all the multiple leaves on the tree. We've not painstakingly tried to draw every individual leaf and so forth. It's a very easy technique. And then I can use that limb color, still with the number 6, and drop in a few more branches here and there. Remembering, if you just use the tip of the paintbrush, you'll get those nice thin lines. Obviously, I'm being careful not to smudge paper. Now, you at home, apart from large washes where you have to keep the paper like this, so the paint slowly run down the paper, when you're into something like doing this tree, you may wish to move your paper around. But for me, doing the video, I need to keep it in one place so that you can properly see what's happening. And then once that's dried off, I've just laid on at the tops of the clumps of leaves some of the lighter yellow wash. Then for the land area closest to us, a complete wash of the light green, and then coming in from the bottom, a wash of the darker green, but slowly coming up and letting the pigment get lighter and lighter as I come up the landscape towards the edge where the water is. Then dry any excess off with tissue at the bottom and use your hairdryer. Dries much lighter again. Then for shadow area, we've got that mixture of the Winsor Blue and the Scarlet Lake. And you can add a little bit of the dark green onto that if you've got it on your brush. You just give a shadow area broken up. Then go to your dark green, still with your number 6, and scrape on some of those grassy areas. They're just an indication. They're letting us know it's not just a total flat area. There's little clumps of grass here and there. An effective way of achieving that, telling the story. Here I'm doing it left-handed because my palette is in the way, and as I said, I don't want to move the paper around. It's much better for the video like this. And we're nearly finished. We've got to do some rocks in the water area with that nice dark mixture that we used in the tree area. You could add a little bit more blue to it so it's not so brown and towards black color, and just lay a few down. And then once you've done that, you clean the brush off, just have clear water on it, and lay down that clear water at the bottom of the rocks areas, and that fuses it in for the water, and it also gives the impression of a little bit of a shadow area, reflective area. And then finally you could just finish off by adding a few more darks whilst all that is still wet, and it fusing even more, and it shows a nice contrast of light and dark. And there we have the finished painting, nice and easy for beginners, wet in wet washes. I'm sure you could achieve this one, so get paper and the materials I've mentioned and have a go. If you enjoyed this tutorial, give my other beginner videos a try by clicking this thumbnail.